the Comic DF.
What is up, besties? It is your girl, the Karmic DF, back to you again with another video. This time we are going to talk about communication. So if you have learned to stifle your voice and you are ready to be able to speak your truth, to be able to not worry about if you're going to offend people, don't be problematic about it, but learning how to just really embrace what it is that you want to say, even if it makes your legs shake, you know that quote? So we're going to get into the why it's become that way and how to move out of it. So if you like these videos, please give it a like. It really does help my channel. Comment down below if this helped you, what you would like to see in future videos. Subscribe and hit that notification bell for more videos. And as always, let's get into it. So I don't know about you, but as someone who is very empathic, and I'm going to likely attract people like me on the page, so you'll probably get this, it's kind of hard to step into our honest truth when it's negative, right? When we believe there's negative connotation involved, because some of us just don't like conflict. And so the first step to really being able to embrace what it is that you have to say and, just taking up space. And if the conversation has to be hard, to be able to step into it and have the hard conversations, you have to understand where your voice was stifled in the first place. Because like I've said in other videos, if you don't know, I'm butchering it, spirit help. What's the quote? Those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And so when we don't heal the reason that we became complacent and being a yes man, yes woman, then we're not going to be able to move forward in order to start speaking our truth. And if we die down the parts of us that we believe will make other people uncomfortable because maybe we don't like conflict, maybe we don't want to stir things up, maybe we believe that our needs are not as important as other people's needs, we're going to develop resentment towards people, and we're going to be angry, and we're going to build that up. And we could break down potentially good relationships and potentially healthy connections. So the first step to this is asking ourselves, where in the past did we believe that our truth wasn't worth sharing, or who in our past made us believe that we were better off seen and not heard? Now, if we're being honest with ourselves, at least with my clients and most people that I talk to, I don't usually see it any other way. It boils down to either childhood or a significant relationship, friendship, love, doesn't matter. We can usually pinpoint where it began. And so that's the first thing. And we also have to understand through a science perspective, so that we're not as hard on ourselves when we're working through this, our brain is wired for survival. And so even when we're trying our best, our brain will try to suss out danger. And so if we learned very early on that it wasn't safe to speak our truth, because say for instance, maybe you had parents that were in their own trauma state. And so, not making excuses for them, but I'm just saying, if they were in their own trauma, then they probably didn't give you the room to express your truth and to express your feelings. And so you might have had to deal with something like kids should be seen and not heard. You weren't valid because you weren't an adult, and therefore your opinions didn't matter. And so you learned early on that it's best to please others instead of making things, uncomfortable for other people. And so maybe you became a people pleaser. And if it didn't happen in childhood, then it might have been like one relationship that you could pin it to where it was really toxic and it hurt you, and you tried to keep the peace, and so you held back the parts of you that you thought would create conflict. And so in order to be able to start to learn to express ourselves, we have to pinpoint where this began so that we can heal that wound, and so that we can reflect on it in a more mature and honest state alone, to be able to understand that, hey, that wasn't accurate, that wasn't right. I had a right to speak my truth, regardless of my age, regardless of my relationship, and moving forward, that is who I want to be. And so I have to understand that it's going to be triggering for me at first, because I've always been taught that I am better left as the giver of relationships, the mother, the nurturer. And that's something that I had to learn as well, where I was kind of like the mother of my friend groups back in the day, where I was constantly asking them how they were doing. I was constantly trying to figure out how I could help them and be a better friend. And you know, that could be the Leo in me, where I'm extremely loyal to a fault sometimes. And it's something that I had to learn to deal with. So it's best to, in the beginning, figure out where it came from, because again, going back to history will repeat itself. If you don't understand why you became more timid, more meek, more submissive in ways, you have to figure out where the trauma lies. Because naturally, think about a child, right? I'm seeing oh my God, that old TV show, Kids Say the Darndest Things. We are inherently like that. We will say what comes to mind. I'm also being drawn to a friend of mine, if they somehow see this, hey Jesus, people with Asperger's, they don't have that emotional intellect all the time, and so they'll kind of just say what's on their mind, and I find that super endearing. But a lot of times they won't pick up on when not to say things, and so that's why, moving backwards again, there's a spectrum, and you have to understand where it comes from. And now if you have Asperger's, that's a whole different, I can't speak on people like that, but it reminds me of remembering that we don't all got it figured out, right? And so we have to understand why we behave the way that we do in order to change that dynamic. And if you're someone that is very quick to be the people pleaser, but you feel like your needs are never met, and then you feel guilty for it, and then maybe you're like me and you're like, well, I'll solve my own problems then, which again, I've said this in multiple videos and posts on Facebook and Instagram, where you should be your best friend, and you should be your own spouse, and you should be your own parent, and you should be your main person to be able to go to. But that being said, if you learn to do that, it can also be a trauma response, because you don't feel that other people are safe. And so you'll feel like you're a burden to other people. You'll feel like people aren't safe. And so you'll become your own confidant. And though that's a beautiful thing to have, you also have to have people in your life to be able to depend on. So going back to my first point, it's a matter of understanding where it came from so that you can address why you believed that your voice didn't matter, why you believed that your needs didn't matter, so that moving forward you can understand why that's a false narrative that you've taught yourself through the past that's now become your inner critic, and you can rewire that so that moving forward you realize that your needs and your desires to speak your truth is not an inconvenience, and it's not something that's wrong, and you're not meant to just be the giver without receiving anything. It's just that you grew up on a false narrative that you are now ready to release. So be proud of yourself for that, and be ready to take on any old facets of yourself that you may no longer resonate with, that may be hard to kind of deal with. I remember, side note, but you will experience this, so I want you to be prepared. I'm not love and light just that. That's toxic positivity. Don't do that. But you're going to be met with relationships that you didn't realize were toxic, that you're going to look at now and be like, wow, you really didn't appreciate me for what I was giving you, because I gave it so freely and I didn't expect anything in return. And so going to other videos that I've said this before, just like actual death, you may go through the stages of grief where you're like, oh my God, I'm so sad. I can't believe I let myself feel that I was less than. And then you might go through the anger stage where you're like, oh hell no, I can't believe y'all let me act a fool. Like, you will go through all the stages, but it's understanding where it came from so that it won't repeat itself moving forward. So now, assuming that you've addressed all the wounds that made you believe that you couldn't speak your truth, you're going to have to start looking at, moving forward, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? And what in your reality does not line up to that? And I'm being drawn to how, when I was going through this, I was using my personal Facebook still. I don't use it anymore. I use my business account, and I have really fun with it because I've made new friends that resonate more with me. But it's about quality over quantity. And maybe you, because you didn't feel as seen or heard, you kind of like, I'm seeing Pokemon. It's like, you wanted all the friends. And that's kind of how I was. I was the party girl. I've said that in multiple videos where, you know, I'm a singer, so I loved karaoke bars, and I had a shit ton of friends, but they were not actually my friends. And I started to realize that as I was working on myself and working through those wounds that I was talking about in the beginning. And so we really need to address, do we need 70 best friends, or do we need 3 people we can really trust and depend on? Because a lot of times, I mean, if you're younger, that's normal. If you're in your teens, maybe even early 20s, it's normal to have a ton of friends. But eventually you got to get to a place where you realize that not everybody's going to have your best interest at heart. You don't need 5,000 friends on Facebook. That's ridiculous, respectfully. That's why they're drawing me back to how I just kept clearing out the clutter. And you also have to realize that in the beginning, because we were working on a primal state, we were kind of leaning on our mind to navigate, and now we need to bring it back down to our gut. We need to bring it back down to our soul. And what is our gut telling us about the people that we are surrounding ourselves with? And like I told you to do in the beginning, when we're addressing our traumas, we're going to notice a lot of stuff, and we're going to notice what we settled for, and we're going to realize that we deserve more. So maybe looking at your Facebook friends and realizing who was part of the older chapters of your life and who wouldn't fit the version of you that you truly are and who you actually want to be. In the beginning, you likely gaslit yourself and made excuses for people because you want connection, and that's natural, that's inherent, that's primal. But we have to start asking, who do I want in my life, and how do they behave? How do they fit into the version of myself that I want to become, the best version of me, right? Are these people holding themselves accountable to the version that they want to be? Because if you're in a path where you're trying to grow and you're trying to learn and you're trying to be the best version of yourself, but you're surrounded by people that love to, and I'm not knocking it because I used to be that person and I was lost and I was in a place of pain. So if you're that person, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying everybody's at a different stage of their life, and you will grow out of people if you are no longer in that stage. And so if you are surrounded by people that cling to a victim mentality and cling to being angry at the world and never taking accountability for their own things, then those are the people that you are not going to be able to get really close to moving forward, because you're not going to be able to trust them. If they're living from a place of primal fear, if they're living from a place of stress, then they're much more likely to attack and gaslight and make you feel, again, like you can't speak your truth. These are not going to be people that are okay with conflict resolution, because if you're in a trauma state, then you're in a place where you're just like, I'm right all the time. I don't want anything to change that. And so we really need to start being more intuitive moving forward, because I know this is a video about communicating, but if you want to communicate, then you need to understand that not everybody has your best intentions at heart. And so if you want to be more honest and if you want to speak your truth, then you need to realize who benefits from you and it's screwed up, but there are people like this who benefits from you feeling less than, and who will use that to hurt you. Because even though we think some people are our friends, some people get off on us not being perfect because they don't feel good within themselves. And so they'll project onto you. And so you really need to figure out who is really there for you, who's a ride or die, versus who's just kind of around because they want to fill a void, and they'd be the first people to maybe tell your secrets, to maybe you're becoming vulnerable now and you want to speak your truth, and you're like, this is my big, this is what I really don't like about myself, this is what I really hide from people, where I feel the most vulnerable. And you're giving that information to someone who is still in their trauma phase, that does not want to better themselves. And so that's a very dangerous move to make, because they'd be the first ones, if you didn't humor their narrative, they'll be the first ones to throw that in your face or to tell other people, and then you will reaffirm to your brain that it's not safe to communicate. That's the bigger picture here. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. So it's not a matter of if communication with others is safe or not. It's that we need to feel safe within ourselves, number one, which is why we have to address the pain in the past. But number two, we have to listen to our intuition, who really cares about us versus who else is in a trauma state that is more likely to enjoy our suffering, because maybe they've put us on a pedestal. Maybe they think that we're kicking ass in life, and they feel like they're down here because social media makes it so we compare each other, and that's not healthy. And so we have to realize that not everybody's rooting for us, and so they might come off as like, oh, how are you doing, and they're humoring the idea of like small talk, right? And they're like, how's your life, how's your work, how's your family, yada yada. But in reality, they might also be looking for your flaws, quote unquote, so that they can feel better about themselves, and that, God forbid, you have your next fight, next argument, because they're not healthy, they'll be the first ones to throw your vulnerabilities in your face. And I'm sure that you've experienced that before, when you didn't have the boundaries and you didn't do the work. So it's honoring that moving forward. We need to be pickier about the people in our lives. We need to listen with discernment, use our gut over our brains, and understand, what is this person really trying to do? Are they here for me, Or are they here because they're trying to fill a void and they're trying to benefit from me? Maybe I do look like I'm better off outside, and so they want to be drawn so they can maybe potentially get some of that. It's narcissism behavior, narcissistic tendencies, which unfortunately is bred very often in our society because we've gone so far away from who we're meant to be. So just be mindful moving forward of who is in your circle. And, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to cut out every single person, but it's like, have that solid handful of people in your life that you trust, but don't tell everybody your business. Not your whole life is not everybody's business unless you're using it for a reason. Like, I don't tell everybody freaking everything, but when I learn my lessons and I've healed from it, that's when I want to share it with you guys and with the people that matter to me. But if I'm going through a storm, then I have 3 people that I trust to talk to about those things, but I wouldn't share it with everybody else because I know better. So don't overextend yourself to people that you wouldn't trust your life with. You know what I mean? Start realizing that quality is way more important than quantity. And if you're going after quantity, then you need to ask yourself the bigger question of what is lacking in me that I feel that I need 5,000 Facebook friends, or that I need to talk to 20 different people each and every single day. Chances are you're running away from yourself and you feel inadequate, and so we need to address those as well. Now, assuming you've done all of what I just listed, it's time to get to the actual communicating, right? Because that's hard. But like I said, we have to address first where it came from. We also then have to look at what people are in our lives moving forward. Who can we trust? Who can we not trust? Who's a real friend? Who's just a part-time friend? You know what I mean? But now that we're moving on to communication itself, we have the solid people that we know that we can trust. Now we need to start practicing. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's not going to be something that you're used to. And so the first thing to remember is that because we've been used to people pleasing for so long, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. And this is something that I actually realized that I was doing when I was learning how to do this. We still don't really want to ruffle feathers because it's so heavily ingrained in us. And so what we need to do is the moment we feel that little niggle in our stomach going, hey, there's something that needs to be said, we need to honor that immediately. Because especially when it comes to women, I can't speak for men. I mean, I've had it happen to me by men, but it's more prominent in women. Take it if it resonates. But a lot of times we don't want to rock the boat. And so if we don't feel that it's that big of a deal, what we end up doing is we hold it back because we're just like, I don't feel like it's worth potential conflict, and so I'm going to hold it back. Don't do that. Do not do that. Get used to being uncomfortable speaking. So, because the problem with that is, even when it's people that we love and trust, we don't want to ruffle the feathers because we love and trust them. And so we're like, all right, we'll let it fly, we'll let it fly. Even if it's something small, we have to address it because the problem is it builds up, it builds up, it builds up, and then we build resentment. And women especially, we're known for it, where we're like, we're going to let it fly. All right, it's not a big deal. Got to let it fly. It's not a big deal. 3, 4, 5 times, and now we're like, oh, hell no. And in the beginning, we're a little bit passive aggressive because it's like, pick up on this so that we don't actually have to have the conversation. Done it. I'm guilty as charged. But then we'll reach a breaking point where it's like, oh no. And then now we've overdone it and we're really angry, and you never even gave that person a chance to understand where you're coming from. So it's realizing that every little piece that's going, hey, speak that out, you need to speak it out. I know it's uncomfortable. I don't like doing it myself. But that being said, you want to set these relationships up for success, right? And the people that are going to ride or die for you are not going to be angry and attacking you and lashing out if you don't like something that's happening. They're going to want to have conflict resolution with you. They're going to want to meet you halfway. And if they don't, then you've already found the people that I was talking about earlier that you should probably remove from your life. Because if they don't care about what's hurting you, if they don't care about how they can better your life, if they don't care about meeting you halfway, then they're not a real friend, relationship, family member. We should hold them accountable too. And so we have to realize that even the little things matter, because the little things will blow up into bigger things. So please realize that the moment something doesn't feel right, it doesn't matter if maybe you're too in your feelings. Maybe you do have your period, because I love hearing that with women. Oh, you're on your period. It doesn't matter. Your feelings are valid. And even as a guy, if you're a guy, I know you don't have a period, but like, men have been taught, right, to just suppress. And the problem with that is just obvious by itself. But we need to start having the hard conversations early, because you'll be teaching your brain that it's safe to do so. On top of that, you'll be learning who's safe for you. On top of that, you'll be avoiding bigger, more explosive fights that you were trying to avoid to begin with because you were stifling your voice. Do you see how that plays out? Your brain instinctively tries to make you feel safe. And the problem with the lack of communication is that when you don't have all the parts, your brain is going to try to fill in the gaps. And I know this happens with women in relationships where it's like, he hasn't texted me in 8 hours. What is he doing? And then guess what? You're filling in the gaps. And you're like, oh, he's cheating. He's doing this. He's texting other girls. He's on Instagram DMing other chicks. This is why this is such an issue. It's going to be uncomfortable to communicate. I understand that it's uncomfortable as hell for me. Trust me, I get it. But the sooner you do it, the sooner the conflict resolution can begin, or the sooner you'll find out that someone's not right for you, because the people that care about you will care that they're hurting you, or care that they're not living up to what they need to be, because it takes two in order to have any sort of connection. And so it's holding yourself accountable, but also holding these accountable as well, these people. And so it's being honest with ourselves, who's here for you and who's really not, who wants to be there for you and who benefits from you not having boundaries and not respecting yourself. So knowing that moving forward, in order to communicate, it's really down to being uncomfortable, but doing it anyway from the moment that you feel it, that it needs to be spoken, that it needs to be said. Even if you believe it to be something that might just be your head making stuff up, that's okay. Because again, the people that care about you will honor that and try to make you feel better. If you're in a relationship and your mind's playing tricks on you, all you have to do is approach it with love and compassion and start getting used to that. Do not do it in an attacking manner. Do not do it in a way of, you're doing this, because then that person's going to feel defensive, even if they are not doing anything intentionally to hurt you. But if you're coming at it from an attacking point of view, then they're going to shut down, just like you've been shut down this whole time. And that's setting both of us up for failure, right? And so we have to realize that those are human beings too. And so that's why it's important to address things in the very beginning. What is it that's bothering me? And how do I approach this in a place of love? So to give you a quick example, I don't know, like, let's go back to the whole he hasn't talked to me in 8 hours thing. Instead of being like, you haven't texted me in 8 hours. What were you doing? Cheated on me, blah, 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 and projecting all of your fears and your wounds onto that person, and then they'll shut down, and then you got a bigger conflict than whatever could have been their real answer. What you're going to need to do moving forward is make it about you. Bring it into you. So going with communication in a healthy way that can breed room for success, you have to be like, for this example, hey babe, I feel really insecure right now. I feel like I might not be a priority for you. I haven't heard from you in 8 hours. It's just kind of making me feel a little insecure. And so I just wanted to hear why you weren't reaching out to me. And I just wanted to hear your side so that I can better understand. Let's not attack people. Let's come at it from a place of love, because again, that's when people will show their true colors. If they care about you, then they want to fix whatever it is that's going on in your little monkey mind. But if they don't care about you, then even as you're approaching it from love, they're going to attack you. And that's how you're going to be able to figure out who's there for you and who's not. And so basically what we're doing is we're reframing the brain, not only to set us up for success in terms of like how we approach it, but we're practicing. It's just like learning to ride a bike, except you're learning to communicate your needs. You're learning to communicate your insecurities. You're learning to communicate your vulnerabilities. And so we have to start somewhere, right? And so we start with training wheels. We start with the little things. Babe, why aren't you talking to me as much? And then we go from there, right? And then when it's time to have the harder conversations, bigger conflict things, maybe at work, right? You need a raise, and that one's really hard. You're learning because you're practicing. So even though it seems little, minuscule, it's choosing to reframe your mind to go, hey, it's okay that I'm allowed to speak my truth, and I'm going to be met with grace because I'm choosing to talk from a place of grace. Hey, I don't feel appreciated. Hey, I don't feel prioritized. Hey, I'm worried about this. Hey, I heard something from a third party. I just want to hear from you. It's how you approach things. It's practicing it on a daily basis, being honest with yourself and honest with the ones that you love so that they are set up to succeed as well, and so that you can naturally weed out the people that don't care about your communication, that don't care about your needs and how they show up in the relationship, they show up in the connection. So you're doing a multitude of things all at once. This isn't just about communication, honey. This is about realizing who's there for you and who's not. This is about realizing where it was stunted to begin with and why you felt like you couldn't communicate your needs. And now you're going to realize that you matter too, your needs matter too, and you're going to be able to figure out who's really there for you, who really loves you versus who was just there for a good time and who doesn't actually care about you as a person. So realizing that once you learn to step into the ability to communicate, you're also releasing yourself from the shackles of the past, and you're expanding yourself to grow, and you're also figuring out who doesn't want to actually be a part of your growth and who isn't trying to grow themselves. And if you want to grow, you need people who want those things too. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know down in the comments if you need any sort of, I don't know, additional information. But it really just boils down to understanding that you deserve to take up space and you deserve to have your needs met too. And those that love and care about you are going to want to make sure that you're happy as well, because you know that a relationship takes two, right? So why are we making excuses for bad behavior? And why do we feel as though our needs aren't as important as those around us? The people that love you are going to want to make you happy, and they're going to want to meet you halfway. And the people that benefit from you not respecting yourselves are going to be very uncomfortable with you stepping into your truth and being like, hey, I don't really like that you do this. I don't like that you disappear on me. And why? Like, answer why. And if they're defensive, then it's because they don't want to change. They don't want to evolve, and they don't care about your emotions. And that doesn't make them a bad person. Maybe it does. It depends on each and every individual situation. But it's a matter of realizing that your needs matter, and the people that love you are going to honor that. So taking a look at how this started, realizing that your needs matter just as much as those around you, learning how to no longer be a people pleaser, learning how to speak your truth even if it does make you uncomfortable, and then you doing that will help your brain relearn that not everybody's out to get you, and not everybody wants just to benefit from you lacking boundaries and lacking the ability to speak up for yourself. You're going to rewire your brain by doing this, and it's going to be a lot easier to communicate your needs without feeling like you're a burden and without feeling like you're problematic, because that's another thing too, is maybe you were told that, you know, you cause drama or you're this or you're that, but more often than not, it's projection, because those people benefited from you not loving yourself enough to be like, hey, I don't deserve A through Z. I don't deserve this or that. So it's realizing that this is going to take time, but so long as you realize where it came from, you stop it, you start to practice it, put your toes in the water, realize through your gut who's there for you, who's not. And if you're not sure if they're there for you, because I have encountered that myself, where it's like, I don't know, and I'm feeling it out, just know that if something in your system is going, maybe don't say that, it's better off to be safe than sorry, because our guts know more than we do. Our intuition knows more than our brain does. Our brain is just, it's a computer system, and it's not built to really read people, versus our gut that maybe you're like, I really want to open up with you. I really want to share this part of me, but something in your gut is going, hey, don't do that. Listen to that, because your mind doesn't know as much as your gut does. So it's really moving through. You know what I'm seeing is that movie, oh God, Spirit. I hated that movie, so I don't remember the name of it. It's like, it's Sandra Bullock. They're in a boat, and they can't look at anything, and so they have their mask on, like this like eye thing, whatever the hell. Someone knows that video, I'm sure. It's a movie, whatever. But it's giving like, even though you can't really see fully, you kind of intuitively know. So listen to that part of you, and also honor that, because if you feel like you can't tell your truth to someone and it's not coming from a place of pain, then it might be time for that person to kick rocks. Because if they can't be there for you, be honest with yourself about that. Because maybe you've been making excuses to have more people in your life because you don't want to be lonely. So really, it's getting into the core of it. Why do I behave the way that I do? What is this telling me about myself? And how do I move forward and learn to trust those around me, versus are they even trustworthy to begin with? It's not about, can I communicate freely? It's about, who can I communicate freely with? It's not that you weren't able to communicate, it's that you had unhealthy people telling you that you weren't allowed, and so you believed that you weren't allowed. And now moving forward, it's who moving forward actually cares about us versus who benefited from us not caring about ourselves. So I hope this made sense. If this did, please leave it a like. Like I said, it helps my channel. If you enjoyed it, you need clarification though, let me know down in the comments. Subscribe to see future videos. And as always, I will see you guys in my next one. Love you all so much, besties. Practice makes perfect. That's what this all boils down to. Trust your gut, trust your heart, quality over quantity. Realize that 100 friends versus 5 best friends, 5 best friends should beat it out every single time. I'm going to leave it at this. Love you guys. See you later. Bye.